Welcome back to the wickedest little city in America for the 2023 Gunsmoke Sessions. April 22nd at the Silver Star Hall in Dodge City, Kansas. Featuring rock, metal, rap, and acoustic. With performances by Guns on Mars, Hey Radio, Brightbird, Maurice Anthony, Witch Cradle, Terrence Severin, and many more. Get your tickets online at www.etherdc.com/Gunsmoke Sessions. Gunsmoke Sessions 2023. April 22nd at the Silver Star Hall in Dodge City, Kansas. Get your tickets now.
Good evening.
What's going on, everybody? It's Wednesday. It's a little after 8. We got a little slow start today, guys, but we're just getting things underway. We've got Representative Bob Lewis with us tonight. He made it. He's here live in the studio. We're going to get things underway here real quick. Normally, we would do events at the front half, but Bob's on a time constraint, so we're just going to go ahead and dive right into things. So, let's go ahead and introduce Bob Lewis. All
Hello.
right. Hey, Bob.
How are you? Good.
How are you this evening?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
And Caitlin?
Right on. Hey, thank you so much for being here tonight. I got to say, it's very impressive that you were willing to come into the Lion's Den. I know you and I haven't seen eye to eye on a lot of things. The legislative coffees have gotten heated, so I won't lie. If I was a betting man, I would have bet that you weren't going to show tonight. And I'm super impressed that you're here. I'm loving it. Thank you.
It's like Chris Matthews hardball. Let's play hardball.
All right. I like it. I like it. And I've had plenty of politicians who won it.
With smiles and a few jokes here and there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We'll try to be funny as well.
Okay. Good.
So this is your first term.
Yeah.
And this whole experience is new to you, I believe. Have you ever served in office before?
I have not. No.
No? Okay. So what has surprised you the most about this session?
Most of the surprises have been good surprises. I'm very impressed with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. There's a lot of diversity in terms of backgrounds. For instance, the fellow who sits next to me on the floor repairs railroad tracks. We have veterinarians, we have social workers, we have doctors, we have only a few lawyers. Of the 125 in the House, there are only 5 lawyers, I believe. There's nurses, there's teachers, there's a number of people who served in the military, there are business people. bankers, a couple of clergy or former clergy, so it's very diverse, and I'm learning a lot from my colleagues in that respect. I also would say that by and large, they are hardworking people that are committed to their, helping to improve Kansas. So I don't know if that's a surprise. But it's certainly something that I've enjoyed.
What you value. Great.
Uh,
So, Representative Lewis, you serve on 4 committees: Judiciary, Financial Institutions and Pensions, Child Welfare, Foster Care, and Welfare Reform. What's the
Yes.
single most important issue you've addressed in these committees?
It's hard to identify any one. I'll focus on one we've actually addressed and passed legislation on, and another, um, and then I'll talk about 2 that we've begun to touch on, but we really haven't addressed, and will, I think, become major issues in the next session. The one we've addressed that I think is quite important is the ESG bill. That's the one from Financial Institutions and Pensions. And what it does is it requires that the CAPERS monies are invested to promote, to maximize investment return and not to promote social policy, whether that policy be conservative or liberal, but that those monies should be used to maximize returns for the teachers and the other public employees. And then as far as the other issues I mentioned that I think we've touched on, but haven't really legislated on. The first one of those is homelessness. This was in the Welfare Reform Committee. We had a hearing on a bill that was proposed that would help to, at least on the surface, it was introduced to help with the homelessness problem. We being the committee weren't really pleased with the hearing. We didn't think that either the proponents or the opponents really, I don't know, they just didn't seem to tackle the issue in a serious way. They were more there to make their political point. So what we did is, I know a fellow in Topeka, Barry Feeker, who's been working with the homelessness problem for the last 35 years. He's recently given up his job, but he was head of a shelter there. And so we managed to put together a roundtable discussion. He knew a lot of people in all sorts of areas that were involved with the homelessness problem. This included law enforcement, businesses, clergy, a councilwoman. Most of these people, just by virtue of proximity, were from the Lawrence or the Topeka, Kansas City area. But we put together about 20 people, I'd say, and this was near the end of the session, and had a good discussion of the problem. And it's obviously a very serious and growing problem, and so I'm hoping we'll continue that discussion.
And as always, it comes down to money.
Some of it does come down to money. It's a money issue. It's also, how you approach, the people in homelessness and what's the cause for it. One just very kind of, how would I say this? And I'm still learning, so I can't claim to be anywhere near an expert, but there appears to be you can kind of classify the homeless, I do at least at this stage, into 2 groups. One would be what I call the acute homeless, which I mean by that they're people who are simply down on their luck. They've lost their job. They've had a death in the family, and they simply need a place to live, and they can't afford a place. That's one group, which, the solution to that is you need to help them find a place to live. There's then the other group I'd call the chronic homeless, and this is the more difficult group to deal with, I think, because these are people who have mental disturbances or drug addictions, or for whatever reason they almost want to be homeless in some odd way. And for instance, Barry Feeker has told us that it takes 70 touches for his group to bring these people in to a homeless shelter so that they can begin to work with them to put their lives back in order. So anyhow, that's an issue that I think will continue to be discussed in the next session. And then the final issue, which will probably come up in the Judiciary Committee, is the fentanyl problem and the problem that we all know about of people overdosing on fentanyl or other opioids. And we have legislated, this didn't come through my committee, it came through others. I believe we increased the penalties for distribution somewhat, and then we also allocated some monies in the appropriations budget.
Didn't we vote against test strips though?
I didn't, but the Senate killed that, unfortunately, yeah. But we also allocated monies for, I don't remember the number of the amount, but for people who don't have health insurance to get addiction counseling and treatment. But you're right.
A large portion of the problem with those test strips is drugs like cocaine and things like that in our area that originate from the coastal regions. They get what's called stepped on a lot, and so they get cut with other drugs. And fentanyl being readily accessible, especially in the Midwest, is what ends up happening in a lot of those cases. And if these people had access to test strips and they weren't illegal, they could at least know that their drugs weren't going to kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously none of it's good, but alive and dead is very different. So that was a very disappointing vote.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We passed it out of the House, as you might know, and then
Sure.
And Dr. Clifford, my colleague, also he spoke to it on the floor, and I think he actually went over to the Senate and testified in the committee that heard that in its favor. So yeah, that's unfortunate. I agree.
So while we're on the topic of drugs, and us being on the eve of what has been a kind of an unofficial holiday at this point, the April 20th of 420 has become so popular that even corporations are beginning to recognize it. You got like Denny's out there. You got Totino's Pizza Rolls.
Right.
You got has a billboard. Burger King getting in on the action.
Right.
But you won't see anything like that in Kansas, will you?
No, you won't.
No. So I understand that you're against it.
Right.
But you have talked about statistics a fair number of times in our legislative coffees that we've been to. And so I take you as a man of science. How do you reconcile all of the evidence we've gathered over 5,000 years of documented human history utilizing the plant and something that shows to have no medical benefits, which is alcohol? We have 148 licenses for out here, but we're not willing to embrace this product when it can do everything from running a car to being medicine.
Yeah, well, you and I just disagree about that. There's differing views on the science. I know that the doctors in our caucus don't support legalization of marijuana, and I've seen what it's doing to Oklahoma and Colorado. I don't think it's particularly been an asset to their society.
But if we know our history, Bob, and we look at our history, we know that the Nixon administration was the administration that made it illegal. And later, John Ehrlichman testified to the Senate that he said, you want to know what this was really about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 in the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but we could get the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin. Then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. So when we talk about disagreements, it wasn't a disagreement when it was made illegal. It was known what we were doing and why we were doing it. But
Well, I don't really look to John Ehrlichman as someone that I look up to. You know, his
well, I'm not
background
saying he
and
was
stuff.
somebody to look up to. I'm saying
But
he
you're-
was
you're quoting
stating the
him as-
conversation they had
well,
when
I
they
don't
made
know
it
what-
illegal.
I don't know what their motivations were, but from what I've seen of marijuana's use, I think it's a drug that moves people into harder drugs, and I just don't think it's good.
Even
for
that's been
society.
disproven statistically. You love statistics. You've cited them multiple times.
I've seen contrary statistics as
You know,
well. Zach.
Another thing that you've cited in multiple legislative copies is your religion, correct? You're a devout Christian, I understand?
I'm a Christian, yes.
Okay, what about Genesis 1:29? God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth. And it was so.
Okay.
Wha-
Yeah, and your point?
My point is you're still against something that is religiously professed to be positive. It is statistically professed to be positive. It is scientifically professed to be positive. But you're not willing.
I didn't interpret the scripture that you just cited.
It's not
as
really
saying
much of an interpretation.
Excuse me.
It's
Can I finish? Zach, can I finish my comments, or are you going to interrupt?
sure.
I don't interpret that as saying that God supports marijuana usage.
Okay. So religiously, you can interpret things like making laws against trans people, and that you can handle, and you can make those religious leaps. But when it's right there in plain text, we can't consider that. So what
Actually,
about the financial devastation to our state?
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Okay. I don't necessarily view my vote with respect to trans having anything to do with my religion. It has to do with fairness in women's sports. And so in that sense, I don't think it's a Christian thing or a Muslim thing or an agnostic thing or an atheist thing. I think anybody who's just looking at fairness in women's sports
So,
Caitlin-
would see
yeah,
that it's not fair.
do
Go ahead,
you
Caitlin.
know? Yeah, do you know any women who are associated with athletics, who have stated to you that their opinion is that they feel that sports are unsafe or unfair? Do you know women like that?
Yes, I do. In fact, you can go to my Facebook page, and a number of women have posted in favor of the fairness bill. So I have a lot. Look, I swam in college. I have a lot of girls who were then girls, now women, who are friends, and I, in fact, this summer I was swimming with some of them. I stayed in touch with a lot of those women, and they, to the person, told me that they don't think this is right, and that they don't think that boys should be competing against girls in sports. I've also spoken to my nephews, my nieces, my grandnieces, who've all participated in sports, almost to a person. Women who I know that have participated in sports are against the biological boys.
So you
Have
really
they
just think that
competed
women
with
are Sorry, go ahead, Caitlin.
Have they competed with any trans women in their athletics?
The ones I'm talking about haven't, because it wasn't it wasn't around when we were competing.
You truly believe that women don't have the ability to be as good as, if not better than, men in sports? Because I was doing a little bit of research on the topic. I'm not a big sports person, so I don't follow it super closely, but I was like, surely there's been times in history where there's been women versus men, and obviously there's the major one that everybody should know about, 1973, right? Tennis match between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs.
Yeah, Billie Jean King was about 20 years younger than Bobby Riggs.
Bobby Riggs was the champion at the time.
Bobby Riggs was, oh, no, he was retired by that time.
No, he was the champion at the time.
No, I lived at that time, so Zach, you're wrong about that. He was significantly older than Billie Jean.
Okay. So what
but
about?
Let me go to your point about that. And I'm here quoting from a 2021 peer-reviewed sports medicine article, Transgender Women in the Female Category of Sports, Perspectives on Testosterone Suppression and Performance Advantage. Quoting, sporting performance is strongly influenced by a range of physiological factors, including muscle force and power-producing capacity, anthropometric characteristics, cardiorespiratory capacity, and metabolic factors. Many of these physiological factors differ significantly between biological males and females as a result of genetic differences and androgen-directed development of secondary sex characteristics. This confers large sporting performance advantages on biological males over females. When comparing athletes who compete directly against one another, such as elite or comparable levels of school-aged athletes, the physiological advantages conferred by biological sex appear on assessment of performance data insurmountable. Further, in sports where contact, collision, or combat are important for gameplay, widely different physiological attributes may create safety and athlete welfare concerns, necessitating not only segregation of sport into male and female categories, but also, for example, into weight and age classes. Thus, to ensure that both men and women can enjoy sports in terms of fairness, safety, and inclusivity,
So
most sports are divided in the first instance into male and female.
is it the obvious solution then? Since the line between male and female in present day has become blurred, isn't the obvious solution to make the division of sports by talent and weight class and age and things of those factor and get rid of the sex part of it? And
I mean,
by your assumption of women being inferior, then it will naturally fall where males are at the top of the league anyway, and there'll be a B team and a C team of females, right?
I disagree with you, Zach. I mean, there is a fundamental difference between men and women, regardless of what people
I'm acknowledging that you believe that. I'm just saying if you remove the segregation part, then we don't have a problem anymore. If it's not segregated and it's done by talent, it'll naturally happen that way anyway, by your theory. Are you just afraid that women might end up being at the top and women and men might not be the powerful ones because strength isn't everything?
Well, certainly strength isn't everything in life, and I don't see it as top and bottom. I just see it as fundamental difference between men and women, and the fact that to be fair and to level the playing field, you need to divide. In most sports, you need to divide them between the sexes. And as I pointed out,
if they're fundamentally different, it'll divide itself. Remove that rule, and it will divide itself naturally.
I don't agree with you. I mean, Renee Richards said, there's one thing that
looks like we lost Bob. Convenient.
He's still here. I think he's having an issue with but he's still on. Maybe his phone died. That may have been a possibility. I'm gonna say that because his browser is still connected or he's frozen.
But there's no audio or video.
Right.
He had an engagement coming up anyway.
He did, but he also his browser's still connected. So that to me says he didn't leave the studio. He did mute, and he did not turn off his camera. So I'm gonna say he's either frozen or the device he was using no longer has power, and he was disconnected in that manner. To be fair, because his browser is still here, and we'll keep him up in case he gets it charged up and back on, because I'm sure he's freaking out right now on his own self. So, no, let's keep him up here on stream.
Oh, I was just gonna. If he popped back in, we'd bring him back up. But
yeah, well, okay, yeah, he's down. So yeah,
Look,
wow, that was a little heated.
Well, it's just kind of frustrating when the only answer is I don't agree, and that is law now because I don't agree, and I don't know. We did research. We have facts. We have statistics because he said at the legislative coffee that he believed in those things, and it's frustrating.
It is. Oh, see, here he is. He's back.
Right.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I was afraid that might happen. I got a call on my phone because I can't.
Oh, that
get
makes
off the
sense.
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Any event, I was just talking about Renee Richards, and she has, as you know, she disagrees with you, Zach, on this one, and believes that trans women who are transcending, or men who are transcending to women shouldn't be allowed to compete with men, or I'm sorry, with women. And she said maybe in the last analysis, maybe not even I should have been allowed to play on a women's tour. Maybe I should have knuckled under and said that's one thing I can't have as my newfound right in being a woman.
But didn't you cite Caitlyn Jenner at the legislative coffee and her statement on women shouldn't trans women shouldn't participate in women's sports? Correct.
I cited to Richards, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Caitlyn Jenner participates in women's golf tournaments starting since 2018. She does it all the time.
So she's a hypocrite. What can I say?
Well, I mean, you cited her,
not
not me.
So she says one thing and does another, and you can't tell where she seems to be confused.
It seems like not a great source to cite your bases on. Caitlin, do you have a question for Bob?
Yeah, if you've got a couple minutes, here's a lighter one. Who do you think you represent in your district? Can you describe like your voter base? Can you describe the constituents who voted for you?
I mean, it was just a primary, so it was all Republicans. But otherwise, I mean, it's not like I have sufficient resources to do polling and figure that kind of thing out. Really, it's just speculation. So I don't know.
Okay, so like besides us, when the campaign trail was happening, and then like before you go to session or during session, are you hearing from your voter base? Like, so do you get to know them at all?
Once again, my contact with voters is through forums like this, the legislative coffees. When I'm out in the community, I represent approximately 23,000 people. That's sort of the big donut hole of Garden City. It's not all of Garden City. And so that's how I get to know my voters, and I knocked on a lot of doors. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, Caitlin. I'm sorry, but it's not scientific. I don't really try and figure out exactly, because I can't figure out on any particular issue, what percentage of my people I represent vote this or think this way or that way on an issue.
Oh, sure. So are they mostly hard workers? Are they people who are looking for jobs who live here? Are they looking for housing? Like, did you ask what they'd like to see in session, or did you get to describe what you had planned to do in session? Just sort of like.
I mean, it's pretty. I mean, I have a Facebook. That's one thing you can see my discussions there. But I don't have an extensive. It's just me. I don't have extensive. I don't have anybody that's an aide or anything that can do polling or go out. So it's very unscientific in that sense. I go to fora. I go to like the Economic Development Committee, that they'll ask me in. I went over to, was it Sublet before session started and talked to some superintendents, school superintendents in the area. So I just, I go to places that ask me to, like you guys asked me to come and talk and discuss things. That's how I get to know my voter base.
Sure. So the ones that you've listed are sort of what I would list in the administrative category, where the show is certainly we have a lot less resources. And so, just like not trying to be scientific about it, just what have you gotten to know about Kansans? Are you from here?
Right.
What's your what's your overall opinion of the people that you're trying to represent?
Sure. Well, I grew up here. I spent 18 years here, and as Zach knows, I came back about 5 years ago. And so, it's just through living and that's how I know the people. It's I grew up here. I've returned here. I talk to people. I listen to people. I get involved in the community, and
Do you think,
yeah.
when with the people that you represent, do you think you have the ability to hear differing opinions and have an opinion that you formed swayed, or is kind of what you think is where you're at?
Well, I learn something every day, in Topeka, both from the emails that I get of all sorts and kinds. Lobbyists are obviously around. It hardly a day goes by that there's not some.
But lobbyists aren't the people you represent. That
Yeah,
shouldn't form your
but,
opinion.
well, no, well,
It's kind of gross that it does.
They do have a lot of information. I'm not saying that I don't talk to them.
A
And
lot
then
of
as
paid information.
excuse me,
A lot of paid information.
hate information.
Paid. They're
paid.
paid to talk to you, to bring you that information
Yeah,
with an agenda.
Yeah, they do, and I recognize where that's coming from. Most people have agendas. You guys have agendas, so don't tell me.
Yeah,
that
but
you're
nobody's
attacking.
paying us. Believe me, we tried.
Okay, I understand. But there are a lot of. I was going to the point that there are a lot of people who come to Topeka unpaid with their group or whatever it is, whether it's a group of high school students that have an interest in an issue, or the Live Well people, or the Compass people, or the livestock people, or so there's all sorts of people that come to Topeka, and oftentimes they'll sit down and chat with me about the issues that they're concerned about.
Is that probably the best way to have a conversation and get an ear from you is an in-person visit?
I don't know if it's the best way, but it's one way that I try and make every effort. If somebody from my area, I don't necessarily, when I say area, technically I represent Garden City, but I sort of consider myself a southwestern Kansas guy. So anybody that comes from southwestern Kansas to Topeka has made that effort and wants to. I make every effort to see them and talk to them. Yeah.
Okay. And
Listen,
what
guys,
is the
yeah, go ahead.
last question, and we'll
Yeah,
let you go.
sure.
How from Shannon Ulrich? How does the everyday citizen get their voices heard and truly listened to? If as representatives have ideas or thoughts, as a representative, do you feel your job is to vote with your conscience or for your constituents, or even if you disagree with them?
Right. Well, there are two, I guess, questions there. How does the everyday person get their voice heard? They need to, speak up and write to me, either emails or a letter is fine. I would say to you that I am much more likely to respond and listen if you indicate that you're from this area of the state. And I've already answered, I think, Zach, this is one of the first questions you asked me. How do I deal with differences if they occur between my conscience and my constituents? Well, it's sort of difficult sometimes to know what constituents think, except from the the emails and the discussions you have. But to the extent there's a disagreement, I'd have to just
Well,
consider that and decide
let,
ultimately to exercise my judgment and decide what I think is best for my constituents and the southwestern people of Kansas.
let me just close with then that 73% of Kansans are tired of seeing Kansas dollars leave because we're surrounded by cannabis on three sides. And Kansas dollars absolutely leave the state in millions. So please keep that in your considerations. I know you're against it, but that doesn't mean that's everybody's opinions. Thank you, Bob, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate having you and you taking the time. We'll have to have you on again soon, maybe even next session. All right.
Great. Well, thank you, Caitlin, and thank you, Zach. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. That was Representative Bob Lewis, everybody. So that was interesting.
We have many more questions, so
Yeah, I mean,
we do invite him back.
I was looking forward to an in-depth conversation. It was sprung on us on the end there that we had a time limit and we had some technical difficulties for a little bit there, but we'll definitely have to have him back. It was a good conversation, and I would like to get even more in depth. And we had some good comments out there, and it just wasn't.
Yeah, I bet.
Being so rushed, I didn't get to highlight a lot of them. Oh, get high in another state. Yeah, it's got nothing to do with whether you want to get high or not. It's about there are medical patients that are leaving our state permanently to get medical care. And there are recreational people leaving our state and getting it and bringing it back, which just is creating a black market, which is creating gangs, which is creating guns, which if you eliminate, is there a black market for alcohol in Finney County? Anybody know? Anybody know a bootlegger? No, it doesn't exist because there's 148 liquor licenses in our freaking county alone. 148 places to go get booze.
Not legalizing cannabis is doing capitalism bad.
So
I will never understand from all the aspects that we discuss this topic, like why it wouldn't be the next thing that needs to happen in the state. We didn't get to.
If you don't drink, does anybody make you go to a liquor store? Yeah.
Delta 8 is legal because of the Hemp Act, and that'll be coming up again soon. So that's a whole show.
They're gonna try and get it shut down. And at the end of the day, the majority of the constituents support it. And if you have representative in your title, you would think that it is your job to put your opinion aside and, represent. It's a crazy thought.
Speaking of,
I haven't been able to smoke Colorado weed outside of Colorado since I got kids because that's just life. You can't make those kinds of risks. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people who leave every single day. We're 2 hours from a Colorado border.
I don't know why I didn't think of this, but if we
lose millions.
Decriminalize or legalize cannabis, then we would have to also talk about how many people are in prison for possession.
Well, absolutely. Junction City Prison is absolutely overflowing with prisoners. They have to send them to Arizona all the time because we can't house them all. And they're nonviolent criminals, and they love having them there because it's cheap labor. You guys would be shocked at how many products had that Made in America sticker, and it's made in America at an American prison because that's where they want them.
For 32 cents an hour.
But yet, in Kansas City, a guy can shoot a kid through with a porch and then double tap his ass, and it takes public outcry for the police to go arrest him. But man, if you got caught, if that kid had a dime bag on him, they would be vilifying him, like crucified. So I'm just gonna say, fuck you and your go get high in another state. That's got nothing to do with it.
Yep. And it's, I don't know about everybody else, so I cannot speak for them, but we cannot afford to just like leave the state.
We have such a difficult time attracting professionals to our area, and it's because we don't have housing for low income service workers. So even if you want to move here and have a nice house, you can't get a decent plumber or something because there's not enough of them around. A decent electrician is hard to find. It's such a night and day difference. If you go to Denver and you go to a restaurant, the service and the food and everything is just completely different. Everything. And it's because they have such a mass influx of people, and it's because there's things to do. There's not a bunch of medieval laws. It's so much more free of an area, and that's not even getting started on other countries and what it's like outside of our area. Sorry, I wasn't talking into my mic. I was on my
It's
soapbox.
okay. I could hear you pretty good.
Seems like a lot of the politicians get elected, then they hit the disconnect button with the people in their district. Well, that's the thing. They were never connected with the people. Bob said so himself. He didn't get elected. He was a Republican that ran a primary, and
I was really frustrated with
John Wheeler didn't leave his house, and Bob said, I knocked a lot of doors. That's all he had to do. He just had to show up. I swear to God, if I
absolutely none of
registered as a
them were like-
Republican, that's all you would have to do.
This is my biggest issue here in Southwest Kansas.
Right? We have
Okay.
such
Yes,
a
and then-
disconnect in our area,
We
and our quality of life is suffering because of it. And it's because we have a panel of 5 white guys that have no idea what to do anymore. We've had to teach all of them just how to come on to this show, which I understand there's a technology gap, but if there's a technology gap, that means there's a gap between everything in the last 30 years. And you can't represent and not understand what you're representing. It's dangerous, and it leads to people being... That type of thinking is what led to that kid getting shot on that porch. In that man's mind, he thought that he was getting robbed because there was a black kid on his porch. And that's just the way a lot of those boomers think. And we need people that are in their 30s and 40s to step up and run for those positions. It's just the only solution. Or we get fed up and we move to another state, and the state continues to crumble because it just can't make enough money.
And like, where and how far are we expected to move? Like, for whatever topic. If you go to Missouri, then there are even more regressive reproductive issues. They just passed child labor laws in a state. I mean, there's so much going on. It's like we can't just decide to pick up and run for any single
Missouri's
issue.
putting bills out there to marry off 12-year-olds, and they got guys supporting it.
The amount of states that are not voting to end child marriages. Put Walter's comment back up there. Let's read that.
Oh, yes.
Call out.
Deadline to run.
Local election deadline to run is June 1st for the Board of Education.
So we kind of glazed over events tonight.
Yes,
Do we
let's
still
get
want to go
that.
backwards on that?
Yes.
You want to take that first one?
Sure. Events this week are brought to you by Dude Smell This LLC. At Dude Smell This LLC, we're passionate about good products, exceptional service, and a positive team spirit. Dude Smell This LLC offers the highest quality CBD products at the most competitive prices. Dude Smell This LLC can tailor make your CBD to fit your dietary needs, from sports rebound, anti-aging skin treatment, eye treatment, sleep syrup, easy queasy elixirs, respiratory support, immune boost, and full spectrum needs. Visit dudesmellthisllc.com and get started on your journey for a better, beautiful way of life. Dude Smell This LLC, located at 920 East Grand in Hayesville, Kansas. Call them now at 316-351-4620.
All right. So, coming up on April 22nd, check out Stevens Park as local artists decorate the sidewalks with colorful temporary works of art. Artists will be working from 1 to 5 during the timed competition. While you are in the park, be sure to vote for your favorite piece of art. The winners will receive a cash prize and the 2023 People's Choice Award. Participants must register in advance. Want to participate and add your own temporary art to Stevens Park? Register online, and we will post that link in the comments.
United Wireless Arena, managed by VenueWorks, is pleased to announce that the Marshall Tucker Band will arrive in Dodge City, Kansas on Friday, April 21st at the United Wireless Arena, located at 4100 West Comanche. Doors will open at 6 p.m., and the Marshall Tucker Band will take the stage at 7 p.m. Tickets are on sale to the public Friday, February 24th at 10 a.m. Tickets are available at the United Wireless Arena ticket office or online through Ticketmaster.com. Handicap seating needs to be requested directly through the ticket office.
All right. Also at United Wireless Arena this Sunday, Los Tigres del Norte. Don't make fun of my Spanish accent. It's terrible.
That was pretty good.
Doors open at 7 and the concert starts at 8. Tickets are $57 to $157. Kind of depends on where you want to sit. If you've ever been to Wireless Arena, it's huge, so there's lots of options. Check out the box office there in Dodge City or go to Ticketmaster.com. All right, and then we got Friday.
Join us for Food Truck Friday in Stevens Park every Friday. And I think maybe I'm mistaken. I could have sworn there's like a K-State group who does plants and stuff, like house plants foliage wise.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go find that and make sure that I'm not making that up. But I think there's gonna be a booth.
You just want there to be plants.
I
don't you?
do, obviously, but I think I saw that somewhere. And when I find it, I'll throw it up on our page.
All right, right.
So
on.
there's another reason to go.
And just a reminder to everybody that the events section is sponsored by Dude Smell This LLC. Check them out. Go to their website. They're a good company. They support us, what we do. We have a lot of you guys that enjoy our show and you tune in every week. So by all means, please support the people that support us. Dude Smell This, Hayesville, Kansas. Thank you guys. All right. So let's go back and talk a little bit more about tonight. Actually, you know what? I wanted to mention something that Kent started today without letting people in the group know. Calling him out because he's not on the show. I'm doing it. So Kent thinks that we should do some running for office. It was mentioned by Greg earlier that registration date is the 1st. So Kent has created some polls for the 4 hosts of the group to see what positions you guys would like to see us run for. That is not, and one more repeat, that is not a promise to run for anything. Running a campaign is very complicated. It is exacerbating.
You would know.
It's hard work, and it can be immensely rewarding if you're willing to dedicate to it. But our call is for people who want to do this, not people with an agenda. People who want real leadership, real representation. We don't want commissioners who steal and board members who support radical right or left agendas. We want people who support agendas that are the best for the position that they've been put into. And I think everybody in our group is a great representation because we all believe in my own personal indoctrinated motto of with great power comes great responsibility. And I think that if you have the ability to run, you should do it. And it's not easy to do. I can't make that promise to you. If it was easy, the correct people would be doing it.
It's that way on purpose.
People who are for the kids and for the teachers. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We were about to say that at the same time. I think one of the biggest gifts for this area would be somebody who, like, in the least list can listen to to the
Sure.
people they're meeting with and be available to do that specifically.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we get to meet coming up here some others who share those views. Again, whether we agree or not on the topics that need to be discussed, the best part is being able to communicate with each other and make sure that we are doing what's best for our children who are like inheriting this space from us, and we can be doing a better job.
One thing I didn't get to touch on with Bob that I really wanted to, because he specifically he mentioned that the age difference between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs. And I just wanted to mention that there is a 16-year-old in 2003, Katie Hendy, became the first woman this is Eri Yoshida. She's 16-year-old pitcher, was drafted to the Kobe 9 Cruise, becoming the first woman ever drafted by a Japanese professional baseball team. And the Japanese take their baseball super seriously. And at 16 years old, she's in there with the adults kicking butt. That was in 2008. She still plays. You're not going to change my mind that women have the ability to be at the top in every category of sports, and all you have to do is give them the opportunity. And I don't understand why desegregating is so scary. If I'm wrong, it'll be segregated sports anyway. If I'm right, oh my God, women might take some form of power in this country. They might actually be respected. They might actually get equal pay and be seen as equals. Anyway, that's our show tonight, guys. I hope you had fun. I really appreciate everybody being here. Caitlin,
Yes,
thanks for joining me. We missed you. I'm
I
glad
miss
you got
guys
to be
too.
here.
Thank you for asking after me.
Yeah, everything go
I'll
good.
be here every other week
Yeah, absolutely.
because shit is busy.
Life happens.
You'd think that because summertime is coming up that we would like get to have some summertime, breaks and relaxation and stuff. But no, May is going to be awesome.
Right.
We got camps. My mom's retiring. Congratulations, Mom. You deserve it. And lots of other stuff going on. Reunions.
Don't
Hopefully we
forget
do camping.
to leave milk and cookies out for Willie Nelson, so he'll
Oh,
leave
yeah?
joints under your pillow.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
I made it up.
Okay, great. I was like, we need cookies anyway.
I mean, I was saying the milk and cookies part, but
That makes sense.
all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great show. Thank you, true believers. Twip, 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 twip. Good night. Twip,
Ladies and
twip.
gentlemen, my name is Lindley Anderson. I am here representing Garden City Education Association, as well as Kansas National Education Association, as I am the Southwest UNISERV chair-elect to take office June 1st. I have one comment, which is, as a woman, biological, in case anyone's wondering, I take offense at the fact that you believe my gender is unable to compete with men in sports.
There's a lot of Kansans that will see a 100% reduction in their income tax. Now, it might not be much. It might be $20, $50, a couple $100, depending on where you fall in that range. But we still are creating a significant threshold there, a significant increase that should really help a lot of the lowest income filers. But I want to be truthful. Moving from 525 down to 515 does benefit primarily the upper incomes. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will close and move that I move to adopt the conference committee report on Senate Bill 169.